Hi and welcome back to Kingsclear. So the last video I put out was the painting of some Model U individuals for the farm scene. Now I got some really good comments and thank you very much for all of those. But one comment was that it was a great video, but they would like to see some technique or the technique that I used to do the painting. Now the issue was generally I hold the my iPhone and it's always a bit difficult to do that and obviously do the painting. But obviously after that comment, I did have a quick look around and on Amazon I found quite a relatively cheap, I think it was only about £9 for a small little tripod and an iPhone holder in effect, which in effect was what we've got now. So basically I can put this down and there we go, I'm hands-free. So what we're going to do today is we're going to try and see if we can get some good video of me showing the various different techniques that I use to do the painting of the individuals. So the individuals that we're going to be doing today are the trade and service bundles. So you've got like a dustman, postman, a policeman, a milkman, and I'm not too sure what the other guy is, but I'm not too sure what he does, but he's just standing around with some type of jacket on. Now, unfortunately, because as I said to you before in the last video, I did buy quite a bit of Model U on and off over the last couple of months or a year or so, I actually realised that I've already got a milkman, a policeman and a postman as well. So in effect, I'm going to have 2 milkmen and 2 postmen, but I'm sure I can lose those in the scenes at various different locations. We've also got 3 individuals here. Now this is the dilemma bundle. So it's basically 2, I would say middle-aged women to a certain extent, and maybe an old chap having a bit of a conversation. And those guys will in effect go with the gardener's bundle. So in effect, these 8 guys are all going to be part of the house scene and the garden scene, which was what I've done over the last couple of months. So that's where we are. I'm going to try this out. I'm also going to try a little bit of time lapse. Now that could be a bit of a disaster, but let's see how it goes. Anyway, I hope you enjoy. So before we start any work, I'll just quickly go through the tools again. So scalpels, obviously you only need 1, but I've got 2 down here. Tweezers, actually I don't need that brush because that's far too thick. Good quality brush or brushes, and obviously generally like a slightly thicker one and a thinner one or a finer one I should say for the detail. This is the tripod with the little mount, and you also get a little clicker to start and stop the video, which is really good actually. It means it's really truly hands-free. Isopropyl alcohol just to clean off the Model U products, and then we've got quite a variety of the Citadel colours. So as I said to you before, there's a lot more upstairs. You don't necessarily need as many as I've got. I've got loads because of the Warhammer stuff that I do, but just a general collection of colours which you can mix and match. But bearing in mind we've got a couple of ladies here as well, so you can get away with maybe some dresses in slightly different colours than what you would normally do with obviously loco crew or other guys working in around the farm, for example. Another thing I definitely recommend is a little mixer, paint mixer that is. Generally, if you've got any paints whatsoever, if they've been sat for a while, they do need a good mix. So you can obviously use your hand and stuff like that, but with all the aircraft that I do and obviously the Warhammer, I invested in one of these. They're not expensive, just a couple of AA batteries, and you can basically put that into the pot, give it a good whiz up for about a minute or so, and generally come out with some really good paint. Okay, let's get going. Okay, so I'm not really too sure why I'm showing you this, but I thought I'd do it anyway. So the first thing we do is just a single strike with a sharp knife on there, and then generally the base will snap off just like so. Once you've done that, you need to clear off of all of these spruces. Now be really careful with this because as I said before, sometimes they're attached to items, brooms, pickaxe handles or something like that, which again could also be very delicate. With all the spruces removed, we can now have a really good look to make sure there's no imperfections and everything looks okay. I've also given these guys a bit of a clean as well, so we're pretty much ready for painting. So the Citadel paints themselves do actually recommend that you can actually water down their product. So this is a watered down slightly, but I find that when you're working, especially on the flesh colours, you need it to be as pretty much as thick as possible. Now, I'm not sure how well this is coming up in the video, but as I say, the actual paint that we use here does actually run in quite well, and it actually thins itself out as it goes. So I normally put a liberal coating on, and I say I'm not too sure if that's focusing. It's quite difficult to look at two things at once. But then, as I say, once it's down for a couple of minutes, or a couple of seconds, I should say, just bring the old brush across there to remove any excess, to expose, obviously, the recess areas around the eyes and the nose, for example. With the flesh base colour layer now done, and obviously I forgot to say this, but these are acrylic paints, so they do dry reasonably quickly. So as you can see, it's all on there, but just to give that little highlight, a very, very small dash of a lighter colour on the cheekbone area, like so, and maybe the forehead. And you don't have to be like really overdo it, because when we put the Rackham flesh over that, that blends that in. But what it does, it just emphasizes and highlights that part of the face, and obviously then darkens the rescinded areas around the nose and the eyes, and in effect gives that facial expression some depth. So with the flesh base colour now done and dry, and as I say, a couple of areas just highlighted with the lighter flesh colour, we'll now go over it with the, I can't say it, but maybe you can read it on there, Rickland flesh shade. And all this does, in effect, it just emphasises some of those recess areas around the eyes, around the nose, and it blends both the base colour and that highlighted flesh colour into basically into symmetry, really. So hopefully that's come through there and you can see that. It does actually give it, when you put this on, it makes the faces a bit darker. So what you can now do, obviously if it's a bit too dark and you want it a bit lighter, then you can then go back over with obviously like the highlighted colour or the flesh colour, just to bring out certain areas to make them pop out, i.e. like the foreheads or the cheekbones, for example. So with that wash now drying on the faces, as you can see, you can definitely see some obviously difference in the colours now on the faces. I'm going to obviously, once it's dry, go over it again, but I'm not sure if you can pick it up obviously with the zoom, but even to a certain extent you can see fingers there on that gentleman holding his head, and a couple of ladies there. You can see the facial expressions, which is exactly what you're after. So as I say, with that stage now completed, now we move on to the next stages, which is where we go through and do the small details, things like shirts, ties, obviously areas of hair at the back of the neck, below the caps and hats, for example, and anything else which is quite small in detail. So what we're doing is we're just slowly building up until we get to the larger items, i.e. jackets, trousers, etc. So as you can see, the area we need to now look at is the shirt area and the tie. The rest of it's all quite big and we can get into that later. But again, like we did with the flesh colour, it doesn't matter if we go over the area that we need to paint, but it is now quite critical that we don't paint on the area of the face, the flesh colour, because obviously that means we'll have to go back in and do the face again. And again, it is similar to before, just bringing that white round for the collar for this particular gentleman and some of the other gentlemen that have got obviously potentially white shirts on. So as mentioned, you really do need to take your time with this. Start away from the flesh colour and bring it up to it. As I say, don't worry about going over the jacket because you're going to paint over that anyway. But it's actually getting the smallest amount of paint. So try and keep it in zoom there. And then just bring it up to the flesh colour. And as I said before, I'm not sure how well this is focusing. Not very well at all, really, to be honest with you. There we go. Just really slowly bring it up to it, but it's easier to work up to it than it is to work away from it until you've got the type of coverage that you're happy with. There we go. Also helpful if when you're doing this, I'd also use a magnifying glass. So up in the loft, I have got a magnifying glass, which I use to do the really fine details. But because I'm doing this downstairs just for ease, it's a bit harder. But as I say, it's just a slow process. Just take your time and you'll get there. With the majority of the shirts and the hairline now done, we can now move on to the bigger areas. So, for example, this policeman, and again, trying to keep it in focus. Again, just work your way into the flesh colours, trying to make sure that you don't overlap on any of those areas, so you don't have to go back in to redo it there. And again, I know this might be quite boring watching paint dry, but as I say, it's just showing you the basic techniques. So I'm not going to spend a great deal of time on here. But again, it's just showing you when you go through with a fine brush and a bit of patience, you can get some quite good results. And then again, working around the hand areas, obviously trying to keep it in focus, apologies. And then once you've then got that area sorted, you can then obviously move out to the wider jacket area, trouser area, wherever you're going to be. Now obviously you've got to remember as well, this guy's got his truncheon, which is just there, so we need to pick that up. But we'll pick that up obviously once the rest of the uniform is dry. Now for this particular uniform, I'm just using hobby colour. It's a flat back, so that will represent the flat type of colours that you'd see on uniforms for the policemen, the posties, and most probably for the dustmen as well. So you can use various different glosses and mattes and semi-mattes and stuff like that. But don't forget, all you're trying to do is represent the fabric colours of the individuals that you're painting. With all the clothes now painted, we now apply the wash to bring out obviously all of those small details and just run slight amounts of wash into the crevices and the gaps, etc., just to highlight those. And once it's dry, it really does mean instead of a flat surface, you get like a 3D layered effect. Now you can be as liberal with this or as sparing with this wash. It's entirely up to you. The thing that you really just need to make sure is that when you wash this, when you apply this wash, I should say, sorry, what you do is you make sure that it doesn't gather in too many crevices, making it really, really dark. So it's just a case of just slowly bringing it through till you get to a point where you're happy with it. And again, you can add more wash at any time. And also I've just noticed there's a bit there around there with a pocket where I've missed the paint. So it's always a good exercise to do this, because you can always pick areas where you've missed. But one thing you do need to do is obviously, if you do find areas like that, is to get in there straight away, because obviously once this wash dries out, if you apply another wash, then obviously you've got to remember that the area around it is going to be slightly different. So I'm going to try and make that pocket area a little bit better now. So similar to that shopkeeper, just apply that wash as sparing or as liberal as you wish, just to really emphasize those areas. And again, it is difficult to see in this light and obviously through the camera, but it really gets into those crevices and emphasizes the actual 3D effect of the clothes, and in effect gets rid of just that flat base coat color that you've got on there as well. And things like obviously the basket as well. Baskets don't look that color, but with a bit of a wash on there, it really just brings that basket to life. And again with the trousers, and as I say, this is the sepia wash, and you can use obviously the null oil, which is the black wash, and there's some other washes you can use as well, just to bring it different colors. And again, obviously you can see this is a, should we say, a bit of an older lady. So I've painted the hair white. I'm now going to put a bit of the black wash on that, which will potentially bring that down to a nice greyish type of colour. So similar to before, but this is using the null oil, which is a black colour or a black type of wash. Just small amounts, just bringing it into the various different crevices within the hair area, but making sure that there's no pooling of the actual wash, which there is there. So we just bring that out, and if you get too much, just obviously wipe your brush on a bit of paper, trying to keep it focused by keeping my hand over there, and then when you put the brush back on, that will then pick up that wash, and then again you can remove that, and yeah, that looks not too bad. Again, with this light shining on it, it's actually a bit difficult to see, but from where I'm sitting, it's actually not too bad. Okay, so we're nearly there now. So the final stage, we've done obviously all the base colours, done all the washes. So if I just go for the last thing, as you see, it's still a bit flat in regards to colour. So what we now do, or what I now do I should say, is a technique called dry brushing. So basically put some paint onto your brush there, and in effect get rid of all of it apart from a small little bit, and then just wipe it over your particular model. And all that really does is it accentuates, and I don't know if that's the right word actually, highlights the all the various areas where it's a little bit proud, and that really just brings another layer of depth to your model. So again, what you'd normally do is use a lighter colour, as I say. So in this regards, this guy's got quite dark brown trousers, so using a lighter colour of brown, obviously making sure I'm focusing again, and then literally hardly any paint on there at all, and then just literally just dry brush it. You can just see, hopefully, those creases are popping out. This is one I did a minute ago, so you can just see it's just highlighting some of those crease areas. So yeah, so we've still got a little bit more to do. And what I've done, like on this, I think he's a shopkeeper actually, to be honest with you. I've gone over that with a bit of the dry brushing as well. And if we just go through where we've done, so I've got this bloody tripod here. So we've got the dustbin man. As I say, we've got the two milkmen, two postmen, the two police officers. These two guys obviously scratching their heads. The three ladies. The one lady wearing the red dress, I've still got to finish her legs off. If you just focus on that. Put a bit of a pattern, just a random blue and white splodges really, to be honest with you. And then we've got this lady wearing the yellow dress. I think I'm going to do a pattern on there, but I'm not entirely sure what to do for that. I say, to be honest with you, rail blokes on the railway are actually quite easy because they're just plain colours, where if you try to put colours onto the lady, it's a bit harder. This lady here, obviously the grey hairs, whitey grey hairs, come off quite well. And then obviously the other finishing touches, as I say, is the tools. So for example, this chap here with his fork, so just got that metal colour on to that fork. Just trying to get the focus there. That's my dog barking in the background. There you go. So yeah, so we're nearly there now. A couple of more stages and we're done. As I've actually referred to him a couple of times throughout the last video and this video, I'll just show you a couple of the Warhammer figures which I did for my son, and basically show you some of the techniques that I gained while I was painting these and how I've now used these techniques on obviously the Model U products. So similar with the flesh colour, obviously putting that base down and then various washes on top to lighten it up. And again, things like dry brushes and using certain different colours just to highlight areas. So as you can see where the armour is, all the edges are highlighted. And again, when you put the washes in those goes into those cracks and in effect it accentuates those areas as well. So yeah, it's a bit of a different scale, obviously a lot bigger than the Model U products, but it was just quite an interesting process to build these, and then when you actually then put them all together, they do look quite effective. And hopefully you can see that you don't need to hone your technique. You can always build your technique up over a period of time. And as I say, it doesn't have to be on the medium of obviously model railways. It can be model aircraft like I do, or these Warhammer guys as well. It's just basically experimenting, trying, learning and listening to others, and yeah, you get there in the end. And as I say, it's your railway, and I've said this so many times, it's your railway, and you do it to your best of your abilities. Just because somebody else might be look a lot better or potentially a lot worse, it doesn't matter. It's what they do, and it's what they enjoy as a hobby. So we're pretty much there now. As I say, I still need to decide what I'm going to do with this lady with the yellow dress. But generally, we're pretty much there. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed, obviously, me using the tripod, so hands-free. It's been a bit of an experience. I also did a bit of the old stop motion as well, so I'm not too sure how well that's going to look. And again, I think it's taken, what, one evening and a bit, so it doesn't take long. And as I say, quite a large amount of individuals have been done. Now, all of these guys will remain on their bases because we're not quite ready for them on the scenes. I will position them on the scenes for the opening shot, most probably, just to give you a bit of context. But again, I really do hope that you've gained something from this. As I say, if you haven't already subscribed, please do. We hit a bit of a milestone this morning, 700 subscribers. So thank you very much to each and every one of you. And like I said before, if you haven't subscribed, why not? Please do. Again, click like, I think it is. And obviously any comments whatsoever, just drop them in and I'll get back to you. So again, thank you very much for your time. Hope you've enjoyed it. And maybe you've picked up a few different things that you weren't too sure of.